What can your student do to increase their test scores? Hi, and welcome to your College Planning Daily Tip that's designed to help you get your students to the right college at the right price while preserving your retirement. So, we all know that the ACT and SAT are paramount to acceptance in college. The better scores your student has, the more chances they have to be accepted. And if they have better scores, then the more chances that they have to receive merit aid. Now, merit aid is money that does not have to be repaid to a college. So, if your student can get this kind of aid from getting better scores on their ACT and SAT, then that means less money out of pocket ultimately for you, hence preserved retirement. So that's why we want to talk about how to increase your student's test score. There are three major things your student can do in order to increase their test score. The first one is to prepare. So they have to do some sort of preparation in order to increase their test scores. They can't walk into these tests blind and expect that things are going to be okay. So they need to do things like practice tests, practice questions, get to know the exams, get to know how they feel, practice in as ideal conditions as possible, so with no interruptions, and go from there. So the more preparation they can do, the better. We recommend about 40 hours of preparation before the first test. And that sounds like a lot of time, but ideally your student is doing it in the 8 to 10 weeks before that test. So it's about 4 to 5 hours a week, depending on how much time they're giving it. So it seems like 40 hours is a lot at first, but if your student puts in that time, then they're going to naturally do better on that real test. The second thing they need to do is to study. So they need to study in school. They need to study, especially in the math classes and English classes, because that really is the focus of these tests. So if your student is not doing well in math, they need to buck up and do it because those tests really rely on math, especially algebra. So if your student can back up and review those things in algebra that maybe they didn't do so well on initially, that will help them do better on the ACT and the SAT. They can also study things like grammar and punctuation that they may not have studied for quite a while in their English classes. So the more that they can bulk up on those foundational elements, the better they're going to do. And the third thing they can do is to commit. So it's to commit to that practice, to commit to themselves, because these tests, although they may feel futile because your student has probably done over 100 standardized tests by now, it's really easy for these to feel like, oh, it's just another standardized test. But if your student thinks that way, that means that they are not going to care about the test very much. So they need to commit to themselves and their future in order to be as successful as possible on these tests. So your student needs to make sure that they prepare, that they study, and that they commit to themselves in order to increase their test scores. If you know someone who would benefit from receiving these emails, please pass this along to them so that they can get these messages too. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.